We are going to convene our October HOF advisory meeting at this time. We do have a quorum and the meeting is being live streamed. We do have ASL available today. So for folks who would like to use ASL, Brandon, can you give the instructions for ASL?
Sure. So, to view the ASL interpretation, pin our interpreters Joan S. and Daniel C. to your screen to follow along.
So hopefully everybody is able to use the ASL if needed. We're going to move into our roll call. And as we move into our roll call, I will be letting folks know that some folks are changing here on the advisory. So as we walk through the roll call, we'll also be giving some updates. So if our list of board members could come up on the screen, that would be wonderful. Welcome to our members. So our first change as we walk through the roll call is James Eash has joined us from Action Housing, from the Action Housing Development Team. He has assumed the seat that was formerly held by Lena Andrews. Today is James's first meeting, and I believe I saw James. James, can you signify if you are present?
Present.
Thanks so much, James. Would you like to say a quick little introduction to the group?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Just happy to be here. As was mentioned, I serve with Action Housing as Director of Real Estate Development. I've been there about 10 years. And prior to that was in community development throughout the city, in Lawrenceville, Mount Washington, and a few other places. So have a lot of background in community development issues and affordable housing, and am happy to be included in this.
Welcome, James. Thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, we have lost Darius from the mayor's office, and we will not have a new appointment from the mayor's office until 2026. I know we're all sad to lose Darius in the conversation. He will be missed, and we will be looking forward to the mayor's office new appointment. Terrell Thomas, are you present? Tanika Harris.
Present.
Karen Garrett.
Present.
Ellie Fisher.
Present.
Councilperson Deb Gross. Deidre Washington. Rochelle Preston. Rebecca Yago.
Present.
Alan Cisco.
Here.
Alan Cisco is present. Leah Matthews.
Present.
Adrian Wanaha, present. Robert Helwig.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Roll call has been taken. We do, again, confirming we have a quorum present. Next on our agenda is going to be the review and acceptance of the minutes from September. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to look at the minutes, and if we could have a motion to accept those minutes, this would be a great time for that.
I move to accept the September minutes as presented.
Thank you, Ellie. Do we have a second?
A second, Tanika.
Tanika Harris has seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions?
I'll abstain from this one since this is the first meeting.
Thank you, James. And anyone who is voting nay on the minutes? Wonderful. Thank you all. Now we're going to move into our registered public comment. We have 3 registered public commenters. Each one of our public comments will have 3 minutes. And we will, again, at the end of the meeting, anyone who did not have the opportunity to register, we will take public comments at the end of the meeting. So I have Megan Hammond for registered public comment.
Thank you, Adrian. It is good to see known faces and allies and friends. Good afternoon, Advisory Board. My name is Megan Hammond. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh. You've heard me speak in previous months this year about tremendous changes occurring within the federal administration regarding fair housing requirements. To share in the chaos of September, that chaos included a recent article in the Washington Post that detailed that current staff attorneys at HUD's Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity have filed litigation that HUD FHEO is not currently meeting its statutory requirements to enforce the federal fair housing law. Additionally, a whistleblower complaint on those facts have resulted in Senator Elizabeth Warren calling for the Office of Inspector General to investigate. A lot more happened, but overall, what I'm here to say is that as a result, federal compliance with fair housing requirements by applicants to the URA potentially does not comport with the city's fair housing requirements in Pittsburgh City. And so I'm asking the advisory board to consider a review of the federal fair housing changes that have occurred and review our city code with the goal of providing feedback to the URA as a whole on potentially revising how we're reviewing compliance with the city code's fair housing requirements. I'm happy to assist with this process. I simply cannot stress enough that continuing a culture that supports fair housing principles within Pittsburgh is now incredibly a burden on us at the local level and requires us to do the work to maintain that which we have created in the past few years and preventing fallbacks from happening because of requirements being rescinded federally, which we use to provide comportment with local requirements. So I appreciate you all with your hard work and look forward to all the hard work we'll get done for the rest of this year to keep it all going. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Jamie
Thank you, Megan.
Latronica.
And I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt quickly. Megan was great in keeping it under 3 minutes. So we appreciate that, but there is a 3-minute limit to the public comments. So I will be announcing when you're hitting 3 minutes. Thanks.
Thanks, Brandon. Jamie Latronica, I hope I am pronouncing your name properly. If not, can you please repeat it when you give your public comment? Thank you. Oh, wonderful.
Good afternoon. My comments will also be short and sweet, so I don't think I'll meet the 3 minutes. But my name is Jamie Latronica, and I am the manager of special projects at Neighborhood Legal Services, which includes our Tangle Title program. I wanted to take this opportunity just to highlight some of the work that the LAP-H funding has enabled NLS to do. NLS helped 39 residents with their Tangle Title cases in fiscal year 2023 to 2024. In addition, we leveraged an additional $30,000 in private funding to support the home ownership stabilization efforts at a cost per case. As the cost per case to handle Tangle Title and foreclosure prevention cases can often exceed the $5,000 threshold established by the URA. This is especially true when numerous heirs with potential property interests are involved in Tangle Title cases and/or a bankruptcy is filed to save the family home. Currently, NLS has 13 Tangle Title cases open under this funding. When a person has a Tangle Title and does not have record title to their home, the person may not be able to obtain a grant or loan to make urgently needed repairs, enter into a payment plan for delinquent water, sewer, or real estate tax bills to avert a sheriff's sale of their home, negotiate with lenders when an existing mortgage goes delinquent, obtain homeowners insurance, or transfer clear title. And often also utilities can be shut off at the property and they're unable to get those turned back on. When tangled title issues are left unresolved, clients are often left with the nearly impossible choice of living in unsafe conditions or becoming homeless. Unresolved tangled titles may also eventually lead to foreclosure and sheriff sales if delinquent bills relating to the property cannot be negotiated. These consequences may ultimately deprive individuals of the only asset that could prevent them from sinking more deeply into poverty. The problems associated with unresolved tangled titles impact not only the occupants, but also the neighborhoods where the houses are located, and ultimately the greater community. Occupants of houses with tangled titles may face a problem they don't understand and either can't or don't know how to fix. They may elect simply to abandon the house or to occupy it until it is uninhabitable. Vacant or uninhabitable houses can attract criminal activity and also create safety and fire hazards. We do get tangled title cases where there is also a foreclosure pending, and we also do foreclosure defense for cases that do not have tangled title issues. In NLS's foreclosure prevention realm, NLS provides legal advice to homeowners prior to foreclosure, and it analyzes for and helps borrowers pursue loan modification options or Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Generally, NLS,
Excuse me,
sorry.
Jimmy, your 3 minutes are up. Can you finish that thought, please?
Yes, please. I just wanted to end with the LAP-H funding has been an essential resource that allows NLS to continue their tangled title and foreclosure work and keep clients housed and in possession of an asset that is life-changing. So thank you for your time and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Jamie. And as our board members may remember, we had intended to be having a more in-depth LAP-H discussion today. However, there are still some outstanding questions that needed to be resolved by the URA. So that LAP-H conversation will be pushed back to our next meeting. Just so everyone is aware, I'm sure that you were thinking that that was going to be on this agenda and wondering why it was not. That is because there are still some outstanding items that the URA wants to be able to bring to the table. So we will be having that discussion next month. Hopefully, as all those questions are answered, we can have that conversation more in depth next month. We do
Well,
have
keep me in
one
mind next month.
Will do.
Thank you.
We do, and just to acknowledge, we do have Natalie Ryan and Swain Uber here today. There was some confusion about in-person versus virtual. Natalie and Swain, we are not putting you into the public comment section because both of you are representing directly funded programs that are administered by a specific entity, the LAP and the HSP programs. And those programs may have some direct related questions. So we are hoping that as we are having conversation later in the meeting, we can call on the two of you for additional information as that makes sense in the conversation. So hold tight, and we know we do have other public comment. Aisha Sheely is our final registered public comment. Again, we will allow for public comment at the end of the meeting after our agenda items as well. But Aisha, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If not, please repeat your name correctly for your public comment.
Hi, my name's correct, Aisha Sheely.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining us, Aisha. Feel free to make your public comment.
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
No worries. We put you on the spot.
okay. Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me a few minutes to share my story. My name is Aisha Sheely, and I live in the Brookline with my 4 children. They are 12, 11, 7, and 4 years old. 2 of them have special needs, and one of my sons is nonverbal and autistic. He depends on a daily routine and stability to feel safe. The home we've been in for the past 5 years has given him the sense of comfort and consistency. Losing that would be devastating for him and all of us. Right now, I have an eviction notice for something that I did not do wrong. The situation started in 2023 with the Housing Authority of City of Pittsburgh when my account was mislabeled. It was marked as failed inspection. And even though a real inspection never took place, the way this system works is that when a home is labeled as a failed, the landlord immediately stops receiving Section 8 payments from the Housing Authority. Because of this mistake, my landlord has stopped receiving payments through no fault of mine. Once the error was discovered, I began fighting to get it corrected so that the rental payments could start again. During that time, I've tried to cover the full rent, which is $21.90 on my own, but that was something that I simply could not maintain. My landlord has been patient and kind, but I know even with their patience have limits. I have worked with multiple housing advocates and neighborhood legal services to try to fix this, but the process has been slow, frustrating, and exhausting. I now have a hearing date on November 6th, and I am here asking for help and support in navigating this before it's too late. I also live with my own health challenges, and all of this has taken a real toll on me. The stress, the uncertainties that made it hard to sleep, hard to focus, and hard to keep pushing forward on days. But I do, because my children depend on me. They deserve to have a home, a place to feel safe and steady. This experience has changed my life. I have done everything I can, apply for grants, calling everyone I can think of, showing up again and again to try to make this right. I am grateful for those who have helped me along the way, but gratitude does not ease the fear that I feel every day when I think about what could happen if we lose our home. I am not here just for me. I'm speaking for every parent who is trying to do everything right and still falls through the cracks because of the mistakes of the system that moves too slowly to protect us. Family like mine need action. We need compassion, and we need accountability. No one should have to fight this hard to keep a roof over their children's head. I'm asking the board to help fix this, what went wrong, and make sure no other family has to go through what mine is going through. My kids deserve a home where they can feel safe, grow, and thrive. Please help me make this possible. Thank you for listening. I hope my story moves you to act now, not just for me, but for all the families who are counting on you to make things right.
Yesha, thank you so much for those comments. And it just so happens that last month we were talking about appeal processes and how we know when something in the system hasn't worked well, or has had barriers to folks being able to access it. So your comments are very timely. From this board's perspective, I'm not exactly sure how we can support you on the ground today, but I do have a group of colleagues that are here representing organizations that are on the ground. And at this time, if any of those organizations would like to connect just briefly with Aisha to give her contact information, if you can support her, I'm going to open the floor at this time for that.
Hello, Aisha. I'm Karen Garrett, and I'm a representative with the Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh. And I'll take your contact information and try to have someone from our organization make contact with you.
My name is Aisha Sheely, and my telephone number is 412-927.
Wait. This is public. Don't do that right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and record.
It's okay. I
Right
I have your name. That's all I need. I have
Okay.
everything else as long as it's in the system.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Aisha, did you already contact Neighborhood Legal Services?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll also take your information, Aisha, if somebody would be willing to share it with me after this meeting, after it's gathered. I'm Natalie from Action Housing.
Thank you.
Same. I was going to ask if the URA could share, Ms. Sheely, if you're okay with it, if the URA could share your contact information with us offline, so it's not in the public. If they can share with the HOF board, and we can move that way. Okay. Thank you. And Swain, just so Brandon. Yes. Okay.
Aisha, we do take your contact information when you register for public comment. So the URA can put that out to the organizations that have reached out in this moment. So we obviously have had Neighborhood Legal Services who you've already connected with. Karen Garrett will be taking a look at this at the City Housing Authority. And we also had Natalie Ryan, who came forward from Action Housing. If you're comfortable with us sharing that contact information, we will absolutely do that.
Yes, I'm fine with it.
Thank you, Aisha. We appreciate you coming, and we hope that we can get a speedy resolution for you. And thank you again for reminding us that this is one of the most important things that we can be talking about, is how our funding actually works on the ground. And that is something that we want to continue to try to benchmark and make sure we're doing right by you. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you guys for your time.
Absolutely. So we're going to actually move now from public comment to a rental gap program application that has been submitted, and we're going to review that.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David DiBernardo, and I am the manager of residential lending. Today, I am seeking authorization to enter into a rental gap program loan agreement with Half the Battle LLC or a related entity in an amount of up to $225,000 for the new construction of 4 units of affordable housing known as Cliffside Overlook. Cliffside Overlook is the new construction of 4 affordable rental housing units in the Crawford Roberts neighborhood of Pittsburgh. The units will be built as 2-stack duplexes. The land at 1717 and 1719 Cliff Street is currently vacant and is owned by the Pittsburgh Land Bank, which will be transferred to the developer at or before the closing of this loan. All 4 units will be 3-bedroom, 1.5-bathroom apartments. One of these units will be rented to a family earning at or below 30% of area median income, and 3 units will be rented to residents earning at or below 50% of area median income. The developer for this project is Half the Battle LLC, which is 100% owned and operated by Tyann Battle. Tyann is the executive director of ACH Clear Pathways, which offers programs to youth and other community members in the Hill District to express themselves through visual and performing arts. In 2019, under Tyann Battle's leadership, ACH Clear Pathways purchased the historic Kaufman Center and renovated the building in a 3-phase renovation addition project. This project utilized a mix of public and private financing to complete the work. The general contractor for this project was Macero Construction, who will also be building these housing units in the Cliffside Overlook development. Sources of funding for this project include an FHLB AHP grant, a permanent loan from First National Bank, an equity investment from Neighborhood Allies, a PHFA Fair grant, deferred developer fee, and this rental gap program loan. If authorized, this project is expected to close in December 2025, with construction being completed in the fall of 2026, with units leased up by November of 2026. I'd now like to open the floor up. I'd now like to introduce Tyann Battle, who is joining us today to comment on her project. Tyann, whenever you're ready, you can give your remarks. Thank you for
Thank you,
being here.
David. Absolutely. Good afternoon, board. My name is Tyann Battle. I am the owner and CEO of Half the Battle LLC. I was born and raised in the Hill District, and as David explained to you, I've completed my first project through my nonprofit organization, taking ownership of the community asset of the Hill House Association. I have a strong relationship with Stephen Macero for over the past 14 years, and we've actually manifested this project to help the Hill District gain more affordable housing units. This project is special to me. I was born and raised on Cliff Street. Milt Washington was a minority developer who built the townhomes that are currently on Cliff Street. And my mother purchased her first-time home there on Cliff Street 40 years later, and she's still there. So I have a drive to give back to the community with visual and performing arts, but also with affordable housing. A lot of my families that I service now go through hardship. They're looking for a nice, safe place to live and reside. And I'm hoping that you all would consider this project for the city of Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments, requests for additional information on this project?
Tanika Harris here. I have a comment. David, thank you for incorporating everything else related to Miss Battle, because oftentimes we separate it. And I think it's important to show the totality, and we're not monolithic people. And so the fact that something that, and I was able to watch it. So the fact that Ms. Battle was able to acquire a building such as the Kauffman Center to renovate it and provide programming, and her programming never lapsed. So I think that's huge. And thank you for including that in this, because I think that's important to note, especially while we're sitting here to vote. Ms. Battle, thank you for your continued work. I'm sure it's not easy. The Hill District is a tough community to do the work in, and it's even tougher when you have a vested interest as being an individual who was from that space and has never left the space. So thank you for that, and thank you for continuing to do the hard work and the heart work, because what you do is heart work. And you oftentimes don't get the accolades for it. So I always get excited when I see these types of projects coming through to us, because it shows that this can happen, but it takes all of us. The capital stack is incredible. So thank you for that. I hate sometimes that we have to show that we look what we've done already, and look, and I'm asking for public money as well, but I just want to say thank you for doing that. This is what this program is for. So this is a model project, and I appreciate your work, and you have my full support.
Thank you so much, Ms. Harris. I truly appreciate that. Oftentimes, people think about a small developer as a liability, which I understand that. But I feel like the experience that my God has blessed me with utilizing me for the Kauffman Center as a community project, and then moving on to this development and residential. I have the experience, I have the expertise, the mentorship, and the people backing me like a neighborhood allies. So I really feel confident about pulling this project through, and I'm hoping that the board would consider it. Thank you.
Other advisory members, questions, comments, clarifications on this project?
Yeah, this is Alan. Super quick question. So one of the sources is the Federal Home Loan Bank, the 600 grand in the stack. Is that awarded like in the last cycle, or is that sort of submitted for the upcoming cycle that'll get awarded in December?
No, I'm already awarded. I was rewarded last year. So I've been at this
Congratulations.
a full year now. Yes. So all of the capital stack is like secure award
Love it.
letters. I just signed my agreement with the FAIR grant. So as the URA told me a year ago, we are the last to come in, and he was absolutely right. So I'm working with Lisa Kelly at the First National Bank. She's just waiting to hear from you guys to get me to the board approval, and then we'll be ready to close.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a question. I am not trying to get in front of any other board members. Unfortunately, in the view here, I'm having trouble seeing who's coming off mute or raising hands. But I would like to ask the question, since this is a stacked duplex, what does the accessibility look like? Are 2 of the units accessible?
Yes, 2 of the units are accessible. With the design from the architect, I made it my intention was to be sure that they would be accessible, whether it would be for handicap accessibility or maybe a senior. So there would be no step going into the first floor units. It's just straight off the ground. But the other 2 that are stacked on top would not be accessible.
Thank you.
I do have a question. David, do you mind just giving the breakdown of what the rental gap program is? Because to Alan's question about the capital stack, I think it's important to bear note, since it's public, that this is the last money in. So do you have the verbiage somewhere that you could just reach so that we can have that? Because by the time it comes to us for this particular program, that means all the other money has already been secured.
That's correct. I guess our next segment will be discussing all of these programs, including the rental gap program. But in short, the rental gap program is designed to be gap financing. it is designed for a project that has raised nearly all of the money. And if we can just get it that last piece, it can get over the finish line on fundraising and it can get built. And that's why it's so important that we have this. As you can see from this capital stack, like you pointed out, Tanika, this is um, uh, Miss Battle had gone out and fundraised as hard as you can. She has maximized private capital investment in this project. The bank will not lend her another 225,000 just because of the economics, the numbers of the project, the rent revenue, the expenses that are going to be generated. And they wouldn't be doing her a favor to give her more because you need to be able to, carry that debt and make your payments and have a little bit of extra money to invest back into the properties. So
Thank
this
you.
is why, yeah, the rental gap program provides 0% interest cash flow loan, meaning that we only receive payments if there's excess capital after all expenses are paid. So it's soft debt is what we call it. So that's why it's really important to have. So thank you for highlighting that.
If there is, I actually see our developer does have her hand raised.
Thank you. I just wanted to use my Zoom etiquette. I did want to let the board know that the project was approved through the Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh, with the choice PVV voucher. I hope I'm saying that right. I always get tongue-tied. So there will be vouchers that will be attached to the units so that the sustainability of rents are able to come through and the property is sustainable.
Thank you. I don't think I see any additional hands raised. At this time, is there any member of the advisory team that would like to make a motion as listed here on the slide in relationship to this project?
I will. Tanika Harris, I make a motion to authorize and to enter into a rental gap program loan agreement with Half the Battle LLC or a related entity in an amount of up to $225,000 for the construction of 2 stacked duplexes located at 1717 and 1719 Cliff Street in the Crawford Roberts neighborhood of Pittsburgh, 5th Ward.
Thank you, Tanika. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chantalea. At this time, would any advisory team members who have a conflict of interest please disclose it at this time and abstain from the vote?
This is Karen. I'd like to abstain from the vote.
Thank you, Karen. Karen, in her role at the Housing Authority, has abstained from this particular vote. We're now going to take the vote on the action from Tanika. Oh,
this is Deidre Washington. I'd like to abstain from the vote.
Okay. Thank you, Deidre and Karen. Any other abstentions before we call for a full vote? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any nay votes at this time? Hearing none, we have approved the project. Thank you so much for bringing this in front of us, and we are really looking forward to our continued relationship with Half the Battle. We hope you'll come back and share with us the progress on the project.
Absolutely. And you all, I appreciate this vote. And I'll make sure that David sends out the groundbreaking invite. So if you have time, you can attend. But I would like to acknowledge David at this time. Through this process, it's been very challenging. And oftentimes colleagues in the government doesn't get acknowledged for the work that they do. But David, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for your calmness. Thank you for your just taking time to educate me on the requirements, the stipulation, the timeline. It has been a good time learning with you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure working with you. I look forward to getting this built with you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, you guys have a good day.
Oh, you too. And please stay with us if you'd like.
Okay.
All right, we're on to our next agenda item, which is the state of the HOF, expenditures and updates. And we're really looking at this through, the lens of our final item for the afternoon will be our allocation planning conversation. So really thinking of where we are now, where we've been, and what we can do. Take it away, URA staff.
I'm sorry, Brandon, are you, maybe we have, I don't know, we were maybe focused on the allocation and we didn't go over this, and Kiana's obviously not here. So I'll just, if no one else was prepared to say anything, I'll just point to the graph and ask if there's any questions. Um,
Again, this is our regular updates. This applies to the expenditures in October. These expenditures actually cross years. So the allocations that are actually feeding into these expenditures may not be a current allocation, as sometimes we think about when we're talking about budgeting. So this represents folks who do have overlapping contract years.
No,
Questions from the advisory? Tanika, did you have a question?
No, I was just saying this is self-explanatory. Thank you.
All right, well, that agenda item flew by quickly. And we are going to move into the 2026 annual allocation plan. This process is always exciting and chaotic time of the year. We are going to look at how the board came in related to their recommendations that were submitted online to the URA over the last month. We're going to adjust these numbers dependent on conversation that ensues. We are going to take a vote on the first draft. That first draft will go out for public comment, and the URA staff will, with us review what those next steps are. So I'm going to hand it over to the URA staff to talk about the completed worksheets and especially the funding levels that they have looked at internally and discussions that they've had per program. So thank you, URA staff, for guiding us through this next part.
Yeah, thank you. I will start. I will say that so I'm the manager of residential lending, and I'm joined today by the assistant director of housing who manages our consumer lending programs, Alicia Majors. And so we're going to be splitting this responsibility. Normally Kiana would be doing this, but of course she's unable to be here today. So Alicia and I are honored to be here and speak to the programs that we work on. So we'll just go in order down this list and describe what these programs are and where we're at funding wise. So I'll begin with the rental gap program. Our request for the rental gap program is $5 million. The rental gap program provides gap financing for the creation and preservation of affordable rental housing units. The affordability is defined by the area median income level of the tenants and provides various amounts for 30% AMI, 50% AMI, and 60% AMI households. This program is critical to get low-income housing tax credit or LIHTC projects across the fundraising finish line and can provide a maximum of $2 million per LIHTC project in funding. These projects can often add as many as 50 to 100 units of affordable housing to our communities or keep housing developments affordable for years to come and greatly improve the quality of lives of the residents that live there. We have a robust project pipeline for 2026 and are running low on funding for this program. The other funding sources that we hope to receive are the Home Investment Program and CDBG, which are both federal government grants to the city of Pittsburgh. There is severe uncertainty around the amount of financing from these programs that we will receive. But even if we receive both of these funding sources, as we would in an average year with the federal government operating normally, we would still have a need for this $5 million of HOF funding in the calendar year of 2026. At this time, I will just say that we have this is my priority day because I know like the pipeline of we expect anywhere from 4 to 6 LIHTC projects to come through, which doing the math could be up to $10 million of rental gap program need. These projects cost tens of millions of dollars. So we are a small amount of, we're able to leverage this small investment, relatively small investment, into large results for the city of Pittsburgh and great impact on affordable rental housing. At this time, we only expect to receive maybe up to $2 million of home if we receive any. And it's not looking like we're going to receive any CDBG from what I'm hearing, just FYI. So with that, I will pass it to Alicia to discuss the next few programs here.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I apologize, my camera does not seem to be working in Teams. But my voice is here, so I do apologize for not being on video. But I am here to discuss the Housing Stabilization Program, a $2 million allocation. Action Housing believes the need for rental housing assistance next year will increase. So we are requesting a $2 million allocation to support housing stabilization efforts. With resources across the funding landscape becoming increasingly stretched and housing costs increasing, we anticipate an impending eviction crisis in our capacity, if our capacity is not sustained. With the uncertainty of funding across the board, Action Housing is looking for ways to ensure that we can maintain the successful infrastructure they've built so that families can continue to access timely rental assistance and eviction prevention services. Down payment closing cost assistance. URA staff proposed that $600,000 be allocated to the down payment closing cost assistance program for the 2026 allocation, allowing us to serve an additional 80 households. We were awarded $200,000 through PHFA FAIR to serve additional households and complement the 2025 allocation. We expect to expand the down payment closing cost assistance FAIR funds, we expect to expend the down payment closing cost assistance FAIR funds by early 2027. For our HAP home repair program, according to the 2025 HOF survey results, we're asking $300 million. Improving and preserving existing housing stock has been ranked the second highest priority by our community. Requesting this amount would allow numerous eligible homeowners to address the necessary general home repairs that will allow them to stay in their homes long term. If approved for this funding amount, that would allow an average of 40 homeowners at 30% AMI or below, about 20 homeowners at 50% AMI or below, and nearly another 20 homeowners at 80% AMI or below to receive the assistance they need for general home repairs and maintenance. According to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the typical age of a home sold in Pittsburgh over the last year is 68 years old, with only 4.5% of the homes purchased being built within 5 years. Due to the age of most of the homes in Pittsburgh, along with construction and labor costs escalating each year, it is essential to secure this funding and assist as many homeowners as possible with repairs that would otherwise be unattainable. And with that, David, would you pick up on the for sale development program?
And David, can I just say one thing before you proceed? For board members that are following along, make sure that you understand in that column that the URA board is requesting over $15 million So these do not total the $10 million that we have. As we know, we never have enough to meet the need, but I just wanted to put that into context as folks are following along. If you're adding up, it's going to be more than $10 million. URA is indicating in their staff recommendations the need. That doesn't take one-to-one dollar account for what we have available. So I just want you to be paying attention to that, because if you are adding up, you're getting to that point where you're thinking, wait a minute, where is that extra $1 million coming from? These are their recommendations of need, not the dollars we have available. Thanks, David.
Thank you. That's a great point. Thank you for making that up front. Yeah, so next here, I'd like to talk about the for sale development program. The URA is requesting $1 million for the for sale development program. This program funds the new construction and renovation of affordable for sale housing, which are then sold to households earning at or below 80% of area median income. This program offers grants of up to $100,000 for a renovated house and up to $130,000 for a newly constructed house. According to HOF, I guess I can just say it here. According to HOF guidelines, these houses must then be sold to households earning at or below 80% of AMI for the next 99 years. Other funding sources that we seek to receive for this program in 2026 are home and CDBG. These funding sources are federal grants to the city of Pittsburgh, and currently there's a lot of uncertainty around due to the political debates around budgeting and everything going on about what we'll receive or if we'll receive help at all from those programs. Even if we receive both CDBG and home in 2026, there's a large pipeline from developers across the city. We are receiving a lot of interest about this program, continuing to see a lot of interest. And so we feel like there's a large pipeline to support use of this program. And with that, I will pass it back to Alicia.
Legal assistance program for tenants, the LAPT program, we're asking $2 million. The request for the LAPT providers is $2 million. This request is necessary in order to maintain the level of service currently provided, while also utilizing the Stop the Violence funding to fulfill the purpose it was allocated to the provider, i.e. the expand the Lawyer of the Day program into additional courts within the city. This is only a slight increase from the previous request in 2024 and only slightly more than what the board allocated to support the program in the 2024 annual allocation process. Due to the delays in funding transfers for both HOF and Stop the Violence funds, expansion to additional courts has not been possible yet. Additionally, due to the reduction in funding from HOF in the 2025 allocation, the original Stop the Violence funding also will be lower than initially planned due to administrative fees, calling into question the ability to expand the Lawyer of the Day program and other programs. Estimated programmatic funds for 2025 after admin fees is $760,000 in HOF funds and $1,720,000 in Stop the Violence funds, for a total of $2,480,000 available once the 2025 contract is executed. For LAP-H, the URA staff recommends an allocation of $350,000. The Pittsburgh Foundation has been convening service providers in the region around housing stability and foreclosure and how to collaborate to assist Pittsburgh families in need. The funds requested will help the collaborative effort grow and help to support more unstable homeowners across the city. In small landlord fund, the URA staff requests $100,000 be allocated to the demonstration program. This will allow for up to 4 additional units from small landlords to be improved or created for low-income or housing choice voucher renters.
And then, as we all know, the demonstration dollars are really a pool that we have talked about: innovation, emergencies, items that fall within the traditional HOF programs, and items which fall without of the traditional funding that we've done. So the demonstration dollars, obviously you'll see a URA recommendation there. You'll see an advisory board average there. That is the flexible pool for the things that we either didn't anticipate or things that changed at some point during the allocation term that we feel like we can respond. So that has been a carve out for the last 4 allocations, and that has really been related to the board's desire to keep some resources available and separate that can be used for those emergent and urgent issues, as well as how we could do our work better. Because all of us know that regardless of which program we're talking about, all of these programs are important. We need, for housing stability, we need renters to be supported and we need homeowners to be supported. It isn't homeowners versus renters. Housing stability is not going to be achieved unless we're able to support both types of programming. So that demo dollars has been in that space of what could we do to fill a gap or make an impact that hasn't aligned with one of these more traditional funding categories. So Alicia, I'm not sure if you had more on demonstration dollars. It sort of felt like that was the category that maybe the URA wasn't going to give us a program overview for, because it's a bit more flexible than a program definition.
And you're correct, Adrian. No, I did not have additional information for demo dollars. Okay. Thank you.
So what we did last year that seemed to work well, again, to set the stage: unlimited need, limited resources. The URA staff recommendations come from a combination of their experience and working with providers directly. Their column does include a level of funding that we do not have at hand. So when we think about all of these projects, that is a lens to look through when we're prioritizing, but the URA's recommendations will not dollar for dollar match what we're going to be discussing today. Last year, what we did was we looked at the advisory board averages, and we started the conversation with, asking folks if there's anything about the spreadsheet that you did thinking a month ago about these numbers and thinking about these numbers today. Is there anything that feels in our AB averages as completely unaligned that you're looking at, that you have questions, concerns? We do have some wild variations in some of the categories from last year's allocation to this year's proposed allocations. But we really started last year with, this is what we said as advisory board members. This is our aggregate, our averages. How do we feel about what's there? What's there actually leaves a tiny, tiny little bit of money on the table. Our averages didn't work out perfectly in the allocation amounts. We wanted to start with the allocation amounts, not the categories of users. So we have the 30% AMI, the 50% AMI, the 80% AMI. It seems to be more difficult for us to really talk through these categories using those 3 breakouts. So our hope was today we could start the conversation with where we are in our averages, what we think about what the URA is presented, and just start walking through each of these. And then we can move into that percentage conversation, which is going to be a little bit more complicated. So thoughts from our advisory team members? And I might not be able to see you, so feel free to begin speaking as a member. Please just say who is speaking. Karen, are you off? Are you speaking? Or are we missing? Okay.
Yeah, hi. Having gone through this like twice already, I think you preface it very well that the need is always greater than we're able to provide. And I think that, I mean, I was deliberate in my, survey that I completed, and I'm sure everybody else was as well. And everybody has some strong feelings about, certain things or, whatever. But again, the dollars just are never going to match up to the need. And so I'm comfortable. I would say I believe what you have the averages, in our ability to be able to provide. I would certainly hate for the demonstration dollars to be decreased, because I do recognize there was a lot of thought, a lot of folks, colleagues really participating in making that as comprehensive, making sure it can get out on the street. I remember a lot of conversations about, being able to rise to the occasion. So that's probably where I land in terms of, I would hate for that to be decreased by any amount. I just think that's a really important piece that needs to remain fluid for our members and our ability to kind of, work with our communities. But, for all intents and purposes, the numbers are what they are. I mean, this is I would believe, an aggregate of all of us. In terms of where it lays and lies at. I mean, certainly I'd love to be able to give them the 15, but there's not that much money. It's 9. So that's just kind of my comment. And yeah, that's where I land.
Thanks, Karen. This is Alan. Can I just ask a question? Does anybody know what the current balance of like previously allocated demo dollars is? Like what are we sort of sitting on as the URA currently? And the sort of place this question is coming from is like a pretty big misalignment between what our advisory board average is, like that 632, and what the URA is actually asking for, which is 250. So I'm just curious if we know, like, is there an outstanding balance? Like, how do we reconcile those two things?
Ready for these conversations. Plus, Alan, we still have an RFP that we wanted to issue with demo dollars as they exist today. That was the innovation round.
Yeah.
There were some extra dollars discovered from some loan funds that came back that we as a board have not determined what we wanted to do with yet. But that place where demo was sitting was really with the intention of putting out that innovation RFP. And utilizing the dollars for that.
That's cool. Do we know what the number is, though?
So, Deidre, hold on one second, Deidre, with your hand up. So I believe if we take a look at the loan dollars as well, I think demo would be sitting at 380. David and Brandon, does that match your totals? If we were going to roll the repayment funds into that pool.
Brandon, do you happen to have the actual figures in front of you? I'm looking it up and I can find out for us here.
So what I have are these 3 slides. So I can give you the allocations up to present. So how much has been put in the demonstration program, which looks like, if we look at the last 3 years, 825 maybe. And in 2025, I do not see anything expended.
That's not going to be good, because we committed a lot of money in the last few months, and
Yeah.
and so
no one's drawn down. So it was it's been a significant amount of dollars, but from what I've heard, nobody's contract is fully executed yet from those.
That's correct. Do you remember roughly how much that was from the one service contract one? Was that 250-ish?
Yes.
So the DHS one was between like 220 and 250, and then the Wood Street one was 20 something.
Okay, I can get us a rough estimate here. One second. Um,
But we
so if we assume
have,
that's 250, we'd be around 270,000 left, maybe somewhere in that ballpark. Sorry that I don't have that, but
and
Okay.
that was what we were looking at for that RFP, plus the potential addition of loan repayment funds. As an opportunity to make that more robust or to also fund another HOF program.
Cool.
But
So
we haven't gotten into the weeds, and I don't think we can for this allocation plan on how we're going to use that repayment pool yet. I think that's kind of the strange white space or dark
Yeah.
space, because we don't know what it is.
that makes sense to me. I think my so like I heard like maybe around 270,000 that this group has allocated, but maybe has not been fully committed, though we have had some discussions about what we would like to do with that coming up in the near future. And then the URA team is asking for another 250 in this year's allocation plan. That's what their recommendations are showing us here. So that puts us at a pool of 500, and then plus or minus whatever this loan repayment bucket is. All of those things together say to me, like, let's not overly commit into the demo space above and beyond that. That is my recommendation, is to like, can we bump that down? That feels the 632 that is our average feels too high considering all of the competing priorities and that sort of the rest of the story as it comes to demo dollars.
And I've seen Deidre's hand up. Sorry, Deidre.
Worries. Hello, everyone. Can someone explain what considerations were used to determine that $5 million allocation for the rental gap program for the rental development? Like what made that decision for 5 million, increase for 3 million? What factors were used?
yeah, I'd love to. So, thank you for the question. So, essentially, we have we have some HOF 2024 left, about I think like 1.5 million, and then 2 million of wait. Yeah, HOF 2025, because this is 2026. So we still have some money, and you haven't seen a lot from us. And that is because we've been using the affordable housing bond funds, which need to be spent by December 2026. So we have been prioritizing using that, and we've also been prioritizing spending down all of our federal funds, which we have essentially done. We have just a few 100,000 of home left. Everything else is allocated and committed to projects from home and CDBG that we have been allocated. For the bond, we had that $31 million bond funds. Everything is either formally committed or is tied to a project that is going to be going to the board in the next couple of months. And things can always go off the rails, but these are projects that have fundraised, that have designs that have been approved, that have LIHTC awards that should go to the board. So we're done with bond, we're done with federal funds. So all we have is that 3.5 million of HOF sitting there. And like I said at the beginning of this, really, we expect to have probably 5, maybe 6 LIHTC awards in the city of Pittsburgh. And each of those come to us, they fundraise and they plan expecting $2 million from us in gap financing. These projects can cost anywhere from 20 to $60 million. And so they really need everything that they can get, especially with other agencies kind of scaling back what they're handing out, what they're able to invest. And so with that, just looking at that, if we got $2 million from home, plus this $3 million, we have five. And then if we had this other five, we would just have enough basically for LIHTCs. Plus we have other smaller projects, local developers, and we do have a pipeline of those that we've been working with around the city of Pittsburgh. And you guys might be familiar with some of these developers and developments that haven't been committed yet that have a lot of money fundraised. So it is really looking at need. And this has been the number one stressor in my role as manager and with Kiana as chief housing officer in our conversations. If we only allocate $2 million this year, we will be telling projects we don't have enough money for you next year. Like, that will happen. And I don't know if that kills the project, but it may, and that's going to be a different position than we've had for the last 4 or 5 years.
So David, thank you for
Yeah.
that explanation. Do you have a general amount of how much or how many projects there are and what they're asking for? Like, have the applications been submitted? So do you have a ballpark figure of how much we're looking at for requests that people will be requesting next year?
Sure. So for the LIHTC awards that are they're going to be announced, we believe, this month and maybe this week. And that's when we'll have five new projects, and then they'll submit a formal application. However, all of the LIHTC awards, and we've had, I think maybe like 12 or 15 of these applied for LIHTC awards this year. They give us a pre-LIHTC application. So we already are familiar with the projects, and then we request a formal updated application when they receive the LIHTC award. And that's when it becomes a real project to us, right? Because now they have a LIHTC award, and that's like a huge amount of financing. And we work closely with PHFA to know that it's not going to end up being only two LIHTC awards. Like, we're not going to be wrong on this number. We communicate closely with the mayor's office and with PHFA, who awards the LIHTC awards, to kind of have an idea of what's going to be awarded and what projects are likely to receive them. So we have a good front on that. And then we do also have an additional stack of non-LIHTC projects that we do have the applications, and many of them there'll be a $5 million project. And if we finance them today, they would have a $400,000 gap. So we tell them, you have to wait until you fundraise that 400,000, like we discussed with Cliffside Overlook. I've been talking to Tyann for some time, and I said, once you get that, she finally received the FAIR award 3 months ago, and that's when we said, okay, now let's look at the board, because we just wait until projects are ready to move towards closing to bring them to the board formally. But yeah, we do have a lot of. Yeah.
I understand. And so I was asking, thank you. But do you have like a ballpark figure of how much, that you will need for, is that 5 million what you are thinking, or is that based off of the amount that people are requesting?
That is based off of the requests, which we probably have around. I didn't add up like the non-LIHTC projects, but just off of the top of my head, I can think of like at least 2.5 million of projects that are pretty far along that we've told keep fundraising, get that little bit more, and then we can move to the board. Plus the LIHTC awards at $2 million a project. If you get five of those, which is a normal funding year, I mean, that's well over even what this could provide with this $5 million. Once again, we have about 3.5 million that we can allocate to these projects. And if we receive $10 million of new applications and $2 million of home, we still are gonna run out next year, really, which is fine as long as we can meet most of the need. I'm worried about if we can only fund, half of these, and we just have to tell three LIHTC projects we can't fund you, or we have to tell these local developers who have been working on these for years that we don't have any money for them. And that's a very real thing. It's hard without, like, if we were sitting down just looking at like lists. I do have like projects that I kind of have been trying to line up. Actually, I'm wrong about we have more than the 2.5 in LIHTC. I forgot about one of them. I mean, it really,
David, can I stop
yeah,
you for one quick second? I think
sure.
Deidre, correct me if I'm wrong, she's trying to figure out, like, it seems like that's such a big number, but you've given us more than enough information to understand why that $5 million, why your recommendation is 5 million. Because if you look at the difference between what the advisory board, our averages, it comes to 2 million, and you will have 5 million. So she was just trying to gauge to see, like, why is there such a, so what you've said, basically, there is a great need. There's a great need for in this particular one specifically. And so that bears us to be mindful of when we provide our final determination.
That's correct. And if I could add just one more thing, and then I'll shut up for a minute. We in years past, the last 2 years, $2 million have been allocated per year. So that's what many of the members of the board have seen. Before the housing bond, which happened, 2-3 years ago, we were receiving a 3.8 to sometimes $4.5 million allocation per year. So this $5 million number looks like a huge increase, but it's really back to the norm now that the bond money's gone. I just want to make that point, and then I'll leave it to the board members to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Tanika. Yes, I mean, it's half of our budget, and that's what is concerning to me. And, taking away from, so many of the other, because all of these are needs to me. So that's why I was asking.
And with that being said, Deidre, I think that we're all in lockstep with that sentiment. So something that I think might be helpful is to look at the places where maybe the URA recommendation was lower. And if the URA recommendation was lower, do we want to adjust down our allocation and then have a better sense of what we might have as a variable for the other conversation? So for example, I'm going to use small landlord as one that has a more significant change. So we had recommended as a board as an average about $287,000, whereas the URA put $100,000 into that line item. That is a significant difference. Obviously, it's close to $200,000 in difference. If really what the URA is seeing is the utilization rate for small landlord, that $100,000 would be a robust offering in the program. Are we comfortable as a board going with the URA's recommendation and putting the remaining funds back into I'll just call it the pool for the moment? That's a terrible word, but I don't have a better one. Put it back into the pool for some of the other conversations where we might want to do adjustments upward. Is that something, how is the board feeling about something like that?
I can consider it, but do we have any actuals? Because it's
I
hard for
have
me to really
strong
gauge.
I know you do, Karen.
And I like the recommendation currently because if we look at what we have been expending, that has been an area that has taken off based on some of the information that's been provided to us from the URA. So I don't necessarily agree with the recommendation of the URA of lowering it in comparison. Yeah, in comparison.
And that's what I'm asking. That is actually what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Are we comfortable? Or are we not comfortable? I thought that those would be maybe the easier place to start. Are we comfortable with the URA's recommendation, or are we not? So we have almost 3 times the amount. We were thinking almost 3 times the amount. So if we are not comfortable with that recommendation, there are a few others. So that's what I would like to, hear from the board members. So down payment and closing cost assistance. As we know, that has been, homeowners are also very hard hit. So there's a recommendation here to reduce that by 150,000 from what we were suggesting. And it's not that the URA is technically asking us to reduce it, but we're in a different place on that line item by $150,000. I personally felt differently about that. as a member of the team and the people that I am seeing. So, we could do this line item by line item. We could go by where we have, a more significant up or down variation. It really is important for us to have a draft sense of this for this month because we do need to go out to public comment. So I don't want the board to rush into decisions, but I do want to spur conversation. So if there are thoughts of how we would like to walk through this table, again, recognizing the URA proposed $15 million and we do not have $15 million. So everything that the URA has put in here adds up to a total that's not the total we have to work with.
Yeah,
So we also
and
have to
that's
adjust it
concerning
all.
to me. That's very
Yeah.
concerning because I just think as a board member, we weren't given that latitude to say, hey, what is your wish list? Opposed to looking at the parameters that have been set. That I don't know. I just feel like that doesn't feel fair to me, just seeing that. I mean, I recognize the need. I think I started out, I realized the need is great, but I mean, we weren't given like, here's 20,000. What would you like to do with it? We said, here's 10 minus a million, 9, and let's work with it. And I think that was what we had to work with. So I just feel like
what we could do, Karen, to your point, what we could do is we could just say we're not looking at the staff recommendations any longer. We've heard the presentation. We understand the sentiment behind them. And now we're going to focus on where we've landed as a team. Obviously, we were a little over too. If you look at the totals, our averages didn't come out to the right amount either. So we're also over. I mean, I think the URA is trying to provide us the context. We've heard the context and we can now use the context. We don't have to focus on that dollar amount. What they're saying to us as priorities that they see is rental gap, HAP, HSP, legal assistance. I mean, these are priorities. That's the list. They're all our priorities as well. It's just trying to, in this moment, try to right size some initial conversations so that the public can also respond. And then we can come back with not only our thinking, their response to try to get closer to the reality of 2026.
So
what are things
I'm sorry, just quickly, Adrian. Can we get the actuals up until this point so we can kind of gauge?
The actuals of expenditures?
Yes.
So the problem with that, Deidre, and this is going to continue to be our problem, is that many contracts are using multiple HOF years. So 2025 allocation we voted for last year at this time. Many of our programs are not using 2025 dollars yet. So the actual expenditures are based on when someone gets a contract and then can roll out their programs. So for our actuals, that doesn't line up. We have previous years and previous projects. We have folks that don't have their most current allocation contracts fully rolled out. This is the same problem with the demonstration dollars of us saying a total. Those contracts are not necessarily in someone's hand at this moment. So there isn't an expenditure. So what the URA did for us was provide us our prior year allocations so that we could look at what we've done in prior years. For none of the programs have they not expended their contracts within reason for when we gave them the money, when contracts were in hand. We typically are hearing back from our funded organizations that they're overspending and need more, not that there's an underspending issue. David and Alicia and Brandon, does that feel like it represents our reality, or did I say something out of turn?
Well, I'll speak to, I spoke to the rental gap program. I hope, I feel strongly. I hope I didn't come across as inappropriate. But the for sale development program, we do have we do have some money, unlike the rental gap program, from prior years and from federal sources. So that one could probably pretty easily be reduced, probably be an easy answer. That one's a harder pipeline to know because developers often wait until they receive all of these grants from funding sources to show up and hand us an application, like at the last minute. And so we're waiting for the FHLB AHP awards to be announced, and then we'll get a glut of applicants. So that one's kind of a mystery on what our demand is, except that we have a lot of interest, a lot of developers working on projects for next year. But we do have a little bit of money from prior years for that program.
It also seems like your staff recommendation and our allocation thinking lined up almost perfectly on. If I'm looking at this correctly. So Ellie, I think that you were trying to say something. I apologize again. I hate this board because I can't see all of you.
No, not at all.
Were you trying to say something, Ellie?
Yes, I have a couple of comments, and I completely agree with Deirdre's concerns before too. I was like, oh, that makes a third comment. It's really a challenge making these decisions with the financial information that we're given from the URA. And I would love to work with you guys to figure out how to present useful financial reports to us. So my two comments. One is that it's really helpful to hear the detail of the RGP and that need. And I think the difference, we know there's exceptional need on every single one of these. The difference is that we're actually able to quantify the RGP need rather than the rest of them are kind of limitless, is my view on it. So while I agree, I'd love to be able to fund it at the amount that we can quantify as being a need. We just can't. That's my opinion on it. The other thing is I wanted to share sort of the framing that I've been thinking about this when I did I'm trying to frame it in thinking about who the users of the dollars are. What amount are going to homeowners versus renters? And I was trying to balance that to be even. And then what amount are going to investors, to developers versus the individual people. And I think they're all important constituents of ours, right? And they're not gonna, you can't really, it doesn't really work to say, oh, well, the amount per unit or the amount per homeowner, but just thinking about that balancing has been a helpful framework for me in doing this. I think I don't have anything specific except that I agree about reducing the demonstration dollars, and I would love to be able to come up a little bit on our rental gap, but also not exactly sure where that could come from, because where do you take it from except a tiny bit out of demonstration dollars and maybe small landlord fund. I don't really know enough about. I know that fund has had a hard time spending the dollars is what I've heard across these meetings. And maybe that's where the smaller amount is coming from, a lack of confidence to be able to get those dollars out the door. I want to see the dollars get out the door every year. My recollection is that the half ones, we didn't even allocate a contract for half the dollars last year. And so we're going to have all those dollars still, right? If my recollection.
But we're not, because we did hear from the URA that program was actually oversubscribed. So I agree with everyone. These financials are not pristine by any stretch of the imagination. But what I did just see, because I'm trying to watch all of you raise your hands, was some head shaking on demonstration dollars. So I'm about to put something on the table of keeping demonstration dollars flat for 2026. And thinking through, since we do have more to find out about these ancillary loan repayment dollars, if we felt comfortable with keeping flat now that we have some momentum, knowing that it wasn't going to be completely flat, that we do have some other dollars to talk about, and we do have funds for an RFP to roll out. So if members were comfortable with taking demonstration dollars to the 2025 level, that puts $332 back into the pool. Again, my apologies for sort of the crass commentary using that language, but that is significant as we're talking about what we might like to do in addition to that. So at the moment, I'd like to get the pulse from our team members about demonstration dollars.
And I would just like to quickly add, I am going to update these changes in real time so you can see they are not permanent, they're just drafts.
Thank you, Brandon. And Brandon is our new HOF lead. I apologize. We sort of spent time like introducing and celebrating Brandon. Welcome, Brandon. We're excited to have you. But I saw people nodding yes. What is the temperature on leaving demonstration at the same level as 2025?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, perfect. Piece one. So that does put 332K back into the pool a little bit more.
Adrian, can I say something real quick? And this goes back to something that Ellie and I had talked about months ago. Like we brought it up and I don't want to lose it. With the change of administration and everything that is happening, there are some issues that are going to be coming down the pipe. And so if we look at, if we think about forecasting, it's quite possible that the 2026 allocation plan may not be spent down until possibly 2027, maybe, right? Just because of other, like just looking at history, some items may not. And so when we think about that, I think it's important that as we're going through this process, we think about what's to come, not so much what has happened in the past, because what's coming ahead. And I forgot, Ellie, what you framed it as. You were like, it's going to be a disaster, whatever it is. Like there's a potential catastrophic disaster coming our way. So we need to be mindful of how we can be able to utilize these funds, because these funds may be able to go out in 2027. And at that point, we're going to be we'll be experiencing some different pain points. So that was the only thing. I just wanted to bring that up.
We also have to be better advocates. So that is exactly what we don't want. And, we still have to answer to the URA board, but this is a very focused, intelligent group that has a lot of passion. So we do have to speak to the URA board and they still have to affirm everything, but we can also use our voices and be stronger advocates, which I know members of the group have really wanted to do. And part of the way that we do that is making really good choices in the allocation plan. And unfortunately, every year it sneaks up on us with its own problems, which all of us wish we had 3 more months so that we could be more careful and have more data. Unfortunately, the 3 more months is not in our favor, but thank you to the advisory for, taking a look at demonstration dollars. Do we feel comfortable dialoguing a bit more about these levels? I do think our prior years do inform us. We don't have to replicate them, but I do think prior years and what's happened in prior years informs us. Does the rental gap program need funds? Yes, it does. In the last 2 years, this particular advisory has felt that some of these other funds, to Ellie's point, get on the street and out the door in a way that's very different and feels like it has a very different impact. So advisory team, what are we thinking here when we're looking at rental gap? And I'm not saying like, let's compare that to another line item, but what are you thinking about rental gap? Do we feel that last year's level feels like it resonates, that we were able to have a robust impact? Do we feel like last year's level does not resonate and we need to, rethink our averages? Because it looks like this board came in at exactly the same level as last year. And that is odd and an average for us to come back at the exact same level. So what are people thinking about that? Do you think that reflects how we should be moving forward?
I do.
Other team members, thoughts?
Yeah,
I guess my only thought is I know it's heavily on the rental gap, but we also don't want to lose those leverage dollars that we're getting from the tax credits, because that's a lot of money that we'll lose. Because we're the there but for. So we're usually the last source that the developer is coming to. So I'd hate to see us lose several million for the rental program. And I guess the other thing is to just, again, keep in mind that we had the URA had the bond money prior to this. So that's why they didn't have to dig into this source as deep, because they did have the bond money prior to this and some of the leftover money from the ARPA.
Yeah,
my
Becky,
thought.
I appreciate that about like losing the tax credit, the tax credit sort of leverage there. But I also think those LIHTC deals, and I know other people on this call, James, are sort of smarter about this than me. But you know, my gut tells me that like we're not going to let LIHTC deals fall apart. Like somebody's going to find that money. As opposed to some of these other programming. Like if we get to the end of this and we got an extra $500,000, I'm fine putting it in rental gap. But I don't think we should talk anywhere near that 5 million when we've got all of our other priorities to work through here.
Put a pin. Oh, James. I'm sorry, I just am seeing you, James.
No, that's all right. I raised and lowered because I had a mailman come to the door and the dogs went crazy. So I just wanted to echo a couple things that were said. You know, I think it's obviously this is all limited resources, right? So we're just making tough calls on how to allocate. In general, though, it does feel like the level of the averages is pretty closely mirrors the priorities in the community feedback survey. So I think that's a good starting point. But I'll just echo, I think the comments around the utilization of the programs, and then also the staff recommendations being kind of given a different set of rules than what the board was given, makes it really difficult for us to really allocate. Like we know everything, we know every program needs more money, but without knowing if all the money's been spent in even a small area, you know, the last thing we want to do is oversubscribe or overcommit funds, even if it's $100,000, and then not have that to spend somewhere else. So just wanted to kind of reiterate that. And to Alan's point, you know, I think on the RGP that it's a really important source and funding source. But if we were to commit 5 million there, we'd be making huge cuts down the line. So I don't think we can even really start there as much as I would love to. So, you know, backing into an increase in that line item by some of these other smaller reductions, I think probably makes some sense. But in any case, I think we should feel good with the fact that like the averages where they start, I think accurately reflect the priorities in that community survey.
Thanks, James. Niklas, I saw your hand up. Now I see it down. Was there something you wanted to share?
Yes, but I didn't want to overstep my bounds. Is this discussion exclusively just meant for HOF Advisory Board members?
This moment, I think that's where we are, but we'll certainly tap you for more information. I'm also going to apologize to Natalie and Swain. Thank you for being here, and we will tap you. I think that we may be at that point where we just need to have the board members commenting, but everybody please remember we do have colleagues here that we can utilize their brain power as well. But thank you, Niklas. I always appreciate your willingness to participate actively. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little jump. I'm gonna do a little jump to HSP, and I'm just going to put this in a frame. We all felt that we wanted to dedicate more resources to HSP, which I also think is some of some of the materials that we got in the community survey. We did not get to the level of the URA recommendation, but we did feel that an increase was important. Are we still feeling like that increase is important and that line item, even though it may not reflect the full need, would be appropriate for us to move forward with at this time? What are people thinking?
I think so.
I would suggest we put down $1,500,000 on this one as a starting place.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm seeing some consensus. We do feel like it's important and we want to raise it, but in the context of limited resources, we can't get to the ideal amount, but we would like to get higher. So 1.5 million, let's have that there in Brandon's overview. Down payment and closing cost assistance, it seems like we have a relative synergy related to the amounts. Obviously, we felt like we wanted to do a little bit more there. We did hear some commentary related to for sale development, but in the down payment and closing cost assistance, I think we did hear from homeowners it's becoming harder and harder and more folks are getting edged out of homeownership. Is this a level where we feel committed to where the board wanted to be versus, again, we know none of these are perfect. The staff recommendation and down payment and closing cost assistance. And Natalie and Swain, I do see you. I'm just going to put you on hold for a minute.
So this is just my own personal opinion, having not had the experience that a lot of people on this board have. This one to me feels like the recommendation from the staff. They probably likely have the best handle on pipeline, and it's a nominal difference between the averages of the board, and seems like their recommendation might be appropriate.
Agree with James.
I agree.
Great.
Okay, so I'm hearing agreement there of a reduction in that line item to the $600,000 level. All right, homeowner repairs. This obviously was the highest ranked, one of the highest ranked items in the community survey. I don't think anybody believes that it's not a critical item. However, again, we're in that place where the level that we could potentially fund it to isn't even achievable. In this particular case, our advisory board averages were lower than last year. What is the thinking in that space, advisory team?
Go ahead, Robert, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I haven't spoken yet today. I looked at a lot of the allocations that I proposed, from the context of avoiding evictions. A lot of that's the work that I do, landlord-tenant law, and the best way, in my mind, and this may be overly simplistic, to avoid an eviction is to prevent somebody from ever being a tenant. I mean, the power that even that the best of landlords have over somebody's shelter, that's really, really hard to navigate. So I just want to put that forth as my philosophy, and proposing allocations that would hopefully increase home ownership in the city of Pittsburgh, or prevent people from having to move from the homes that they own because they cannot afford the repairs that they need to make.
And I know we've also had discussions about how home safety impacts folks. So it's, our public comment this afternoon mentioned that as well. It's not just the costs, it's also what that potential health impact is. If homes are not safe for people to be living in them, there's an impact to them, there's an impact to their communities. So this is one of the spaces where we had a really rapid shift from last year. So I do think it's important for us to talk about the why. And just reminding everybody at this point in time, we have about $480,000 that we've adjusted, just so folks are aware. I'm kind of trying to keep a tally so that we have some kind of conception of of where we've moved dollars. So, thank you, Robert. Other thoughts from the advisory on this level? And if members are feeling like this is the right level, and when they made their original allocation recommendations, that they still feel that, that's okay too. You don't have to say something. If you're feeling comfortable, then you're feeling comfortable, and we can move to the next item.
I do.
Okay, so
I agree with Robert. I think that we should, and Robert, I don't know if you're saying to add more than what our AB averages are for the homeowner repairs. And to our public commenter earlier, when homeowners aren't able to make those repairs, oftentimes they'll end up leaving it, and it causes blight and vacancy and so many other negative issues occur as a result of it. So I would even consider, because we in the 2025 allocations were 2.8 million, I would bump it to 2 million.
from thoughts from the group, that would be an increase of a little less than what we actually have that we've moved out of line items, if I'm doing my math correctly.
2 million is what I actually had in my spreadsheet, for what it's worth.
Yeah, this
Thanks,
one's
Robert.
especially, I'm okay with that number, I guess, as a discussion point for now. This one is especially hard considering, like, I'd like to know more about how things are going with this program, like both the tranche that is being managed at the URA and the tranche that Action, and the one that Action is managing. But given the information we have and sort of relative priorities, I can move on with 2 million.
Hey, Adrian, quickly, can you describe how you're calculating that leftover amount? I'll just throw it in Excel so that way you don't have to do it in your head.
Just looking at what we determined to redeploy from demo dollars and what we looked at from DPCCA.
Okay.
And Natalie, I'm just going to do a very quick speaking for Natalie, not that I can because she's amazing. However, Natalie was, I think, very clear with us in both HSP and in homeowner repairs that the requests and need and validated need well stripped what our allocations were. I think that those two presentations, I think that Action Housing has provided some of our more robust data. Thank you, Natalie, for that. And she has done, her team has spent time with us. If we even look at just whole home repairs in the state, the amount of people that did not get served, we know that those are critical needs in the city and across our region. So that increase to $200,000 does not feel in any way untoward based on the data we have been provided. Last year's allocation was fully spent. So last year is 2 different years, but their prior allocations have been fully spent with waiting lists remaining. So what I'm hearing is the $2 million level there feels comfortable for our team members, that we just weren't there in our averages, but that we feel comfortable with that. Can we take a look at for sale development? This is one of the projects that the URA suggested maybe we could reduce slightly because maybe there has not been the best out the door per LE on this particular program, and it's a bit more of a moving target. So I would at this time ask how the board members feel about reducing it to the staff recommended level or even below. We're about $50,000 more robust in our allocation than the URA was. How are we feeling about that?
I would feel comfortable reducing it to $1 million, just given what they've seen with the program.
Or even less for me. Last year our allocation was 650.
Yeah.
Just thinking about some of these other programs that we're about to start talking about and knowing that we're going to have a conversation going the other way about them.
Agreed.
I would like to see this be a place where we reduce the allocation to a minimum to what we did last year. If people are comfortable going deeper, I am. but I'd like to at least start around last year's allocation.
Agreed, Alan.
So I'm watching heads nod and it seems like folks are feeling like that resonates. Alan's recommendation to keep that at last year's level.
I agree with that. I really struggle with it. I mean, we're all struggling with these ones, but as somebody who's used these dollars and they're pivotal for the work that we do at OPDC, they also have become a lot harder to use because of all the restrictions on these dollars. So as much as I would love to be throwing all sorts of projects at this, I haven't been able to because of requirements of the dollars, and I've been denied on different applications. So yeah, let's do 650.
I'm glad you
Ellie,
said that.
that's so helpful. I mean, thank you for adding that because not all of us would know that. So thank you for your candor.
Yeah, they now require prevailing wage. And David, correct me if I'm wrong on this. So, and a lot of times when I do these, I'm just doing a 1 or 2 house deal that I wasn't going to hit prevailing wage. I wasn't going to use a big enough contractor to actually do the paperwork for prevailing wage. I had a couple of houses that actually didn't need a lot of work, but I needed to subsidize the acquisition. I couldn't use this grant on those dollars on those houses either. So now I'm selling those houses market rate.
Wow.
Just a little color for you.
I think that is really, really helpful to keep in mind, though, as we think through these programs, because if we get utilization numbers eventually, I think it's helpful to keep in mind, like there may not be demand, but there also might be something within the program design that is like suppressing that demand. So keeping that in mind and like hearing stories like Ellie just voiced, I think is going to be really, really necessary.
And I also think, to her point, when we talk about the small landlord fund, we did some working on eliminate some of the barriers for some of our small landlords. And as a result of that, we started to see an increase of utilization of that. But up until then, it was almost zeroing out every year because landlords were struggling to utilize the program, given the loan restrictions. And I think we switched it over to a grant. So therefore, there's a lot less cumbersome barriers to utilizing the program. So I just wanted to make that point as well.
Thank you, Karen. Just to be a monitor, we have about 7 minutes left in this meeting. I'm hoping that a quorum can stay a little longer because I don't want to say we only have 7 minutes to discuss these final items. So I'm hoping that we can have folks stay a little longer. Since you were already on the small landlord fund, Karen, I know that's not in order, but since you left off there, could we pop to small landlord quickly? Because I want us to have appropriate, conversations on all of these. I think I heard from the advisory board members that we do want to keep funding that there were barriers, but maybe the jump to 287.5, considering the program was never funded at that level, may not be the best level of dollars. So I would like to, make sure that where our thinking is aligning. I think so far we've spent about 80,000, if I'm remembering correctly.
I thought there was a lot more, and I could be wrong based on a graph that I saw maybe a board meeting or two ago of some of the dollars, and maybe the URA can help me out here, of the dollars that have been committed for the small landlord fund were going out the door.
Yeah, I don't think 2025 has gone out the door.
No. It would have been, because a lot of our actions that we took. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're currently spending the 2022-2023 funding, and the balance on that is 199,452.
Okay, that's fair.
That's why we didn't fund last year, because there was back dollars, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's been 7 projects closed this year. There's been 16 units made available through finished projects. And we currently have 2 projects committed in the amount of $119,600.
So you're getting close to wiping out what is available from the prior.
Correct.
Okay.
I'd like
Right,
to
so again-
suggest we put 100,000 into this one.
Yep, I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, agreed.
So go with the URA's recommendation there, which certainly well exceeds what we did last year. I'm seeing mostly comfortable with that, so let's just put that there for the moment, and then we're gonna have to review all of these. So legal assistance program, this is one of those ones that's been the combo of different funding sources. So this Stop the Violence money came in, it was an influx, and we did some maneuvering around year to year based on the fact that there are these other funds. That portfolio changes again this year. As some of those funds run out and some different funds are subbing in. So Alicia gave us a pretty good overview of how that's going to look. This is one of the places where our last year's allocation, we went about half, which is unusual. But I think that folks were, we do know that there's been other funding sources, so that is certainly part of the conversation. And then we have with the homeowner program, that has always been funded at a much smaller level. Our allocation that we put there, since that wasn't separated out last year, obviously looks a little bit more robust in comparison to the URA's recommendation than the legal assistance LAPT. So if there are specific targeted questions related to how those funds interplay, Alicia and Swain are here. And we can ask those questions to them. But again, I'm just trying to get the board's thinking before we start pulling in more discussion. So thoughts here.
So it looks like is the averages that we put together, our averages are approximately the same in total as the 2025 allocation?
They are, yes. If you combine the two
Right.
programs, which we know they're separate and distinct services that are provided under each.
Okay.
It's
And in
off by a
terms of
couple hundred. It's off by a couple hundred because we gave them 1.3 and 6 and 2 is like 9.
right, thank you. 5 o'clock math. Appreciate it.
But we haven't separated it out so we didn't have this conversation with it separated last year. So I think that could also be causing some confusion.
Yeah. So what if we tried putting in like 300 for the homeowner, and then if there's space, increasing the tenants, I don't know, 750 or something to get it up at least to where we put last year?
I'm ready to ask Swain and them a question, mostly, or whoever is the appropriate person to ask about the homeownership side of this. And like, has it always existed and we just really didn't see it as separate line items, or is it sort of a new line of programming that is getting funded this year from HAP money? And like, what is the capacity of that over the next 12 months that is my
Yeah, no, good questions. I think it's kind of a little bit of all of those. It was not like since the legal assistance program's creation, it was not separated out, like you all are seeing this year. And it wasn't even really always clearly delineated within contracts or as you all have been through the allocation process previously. It did I think Jamie was on here earlier talking about some Tangle title services that had been funded through it. This year is the first time where there had been a separate RFP process that that people applied to, and that essentially is what just closed last month, if people recall. I've been working with a collaborative of programs there to, try to essentially mirror what we've been successful doing on the eviction prevention side. I think the URA separated out $200,000 for that amount. That again, the funding, not only has funding not reached organizations yet at that point, it has, the RFP hasn't been awarded. So it's still pretty early stages there. And again, that was 200,000, I believe, is what that ended up being.
So like of last year's 1.3 that this group allocated, somewhere around 200,000 ended up going to the legal assistance program for homeowners, and somewhere around 1.1 ended up going towards the tenant facing programs.
Yeah. Sorry. The actual allocation for last year was reduced to 1 million. It wasn't actually 1.3, just for a point of clarification from the HOF. The number, I guess, wasn't updated. And the HSP's allocation was increased by 300. So HSP last year was 1.6 million. That was kind of like a final day switch, if people remember.
Part of the URA transfer. So the URA put dollars in, and then there was a contract. So with HSP, with HAP, there were two pieces of in-house URA, and then there was action. So those dollars are mingled, and that's where we just got the more recent update about Kiana had requested from us that they were able to move line item dollars because those transitions sort of put us off track a bit and programs were oversubscribed. And that may also have been the case with legal assistance with LAP, but this consortium had other resources that they were using that I think also create some confusion.
Yeah, so right. And I'll just provide a bit of explanation about that too. So the Stop the Violence funds were allocated by city council, to expand services beyond what was, essentially maintenance. But since that happened, the dollars still have not reached any of the providers, so no expansion has been possible. But there's also been kind of, this board last year allocated a lower amount, and there's discussion now as well allocating a lower amount. That plus the administrative fees that are being taken out of the funding would actually lead to at the current amount proposed with the average, would lead to a reduction in services in the city, to the point where people would likely need to be laid off, and no expansion would be possible. And there may even need to be a reduction of services in some of the courts where the Lawyer of the Day program operates and keeps thousands of city families in their homes.
Thank you, Swain. And just to sort of look at perspective here, if we look at the chart as, we are keeping a running tally here, total remaining is basically $3.5 million. We are having the discussion right now about legal assistance, and we still have RGP. We haven't put that total in. So that is where we're sitting right at this moment. And again, I'm just putting that back on the table because obviously both programs are incredibly important. We have the prevention side, we have the preservation side under the LAP program, and we have the new construction side. Neither one of those do we want to lose, and both are critical for us to be able to not only maintain our housing stock, but to be able to increase to start to fit that affordability gap that so many people are in. But we are at 5:05, and again, I want us to stay and talk about this for as long as we need to. But what we're really looking at the dollars remaining is about $3.5 million for those two programs.
Is there a universe? So like this would look great to me if we could, find 4 million total and split it between rental gap and legal assistance. Because that is what I think the minimum of what these things need. the place that I look to sort of make that deeper cut again is for sale development. So like before we get caught in the framework of we only have 3.5 million, I just wanted to like put out there that like that is if we don't cut any of the things we've already talked about.
And if we cut for sale development by 500,000, there would only be $150,000 in that line.
Yeah. I am
Just to
personally
put that in
I am
perspective,
personally
folks.
comfortable with that, but I know that that is a sort of dramatic thing to recommend.
This is
And
what it
what
looks
we're
like.
each comfortable with or not, we're going to be making those decisions. So Alan, you know, to your point, what we're comfortable with is in under duress, what we're comfortable with. So, you know, for everyone, I'm sure your viewpoints are different, but that is now something that Alan has put on the table to do a further reduction in FSDP. And Brandon, I apologize. I may have talked over you there for a second.
I was just saying this is an example of what that looks like in terms of remaining budget.
If we removed,
if you made the cut that Alan is suggesting.
I'm going to advocate to not cut FSDP that drastically. I also think for one thing, those grants, the maximum grant amount, and everybody goes for the max, we know this, is I believe $110,000. So we ought to give that grant in increments of that. I mean, I know there's leftover money from previous years, and yeah, you know, the math does its thing, but to some extent, we ought to keep it in terms of round hundreds. You know, maybe we try 5 on it. I think also with this, I appreciate the idea of trying to increase the 3.5 million, but I mean, we could do $1 million on legal assistance for tenants. That's the same as what we did before, and we totally know that that's more is needed. That would give us, I believe, 2.5 for RGP.
2.7.
Oh, well, in that case, give RGP 2.5 and give the rest to legal assistance. I'm just throwing stuff out for people to respond to and to.
Brandon's just putting it in there so
Yep,
everybody can see.
I'm updating your suggestions in real time.
Love it. Thank you.
I agree with you, Ellie.
I also agree.
Okay, I'm not seeing hands up. I'm not seeing sad faces. So I'm going to say, you know, just intellectually on the surface, it feels like maybe we're in a good place. So everybody take a moment, take a look at the budget, absorb. And if someone is comfortable making a motion, we should have a motion on the floor. If no one is comfortable making a motion, we should have more discussion.
So if I could just make one comment about lap T, I would just, you know, 1.2 million, I recognize the need, but I don't think that it actually, and if there's information that, you know, says otherwise, I want to have that information and then, you know, make that corresponding decision. You know, I just don't see how that money, I recognize, you know, it does stabilize tenancies, at least temporarily. I just don't see long-term that it reduces or improves affordability in housing. If I'm wrong, you know, I'm wrong and show me the information, but I just wanted to say that, you know, I see this all the time, you know, so I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Robert. And I think that that's been part of the ongoing discussion year over year. We are not going to invite our partners to provide additional information on that at this time. One of the things that we really need to have a strategy for is for program information to come in before the allocation planning. And for that to be, you know, information that's both public and that the board can utilize. We tried to do better with that this year. We were not perfect. That should be something in the first quarter of next year that we really have on our agenda is how do we want to be here? How do we want to be hearing about outcomes and impact? We continue to say that, but we're not getting there. And I know that it's critical for all of us to do that. Outcomes and impact, to Ellie's point, what money is getting out the door, and more importantly, to Aisha's point of, if the folks that are utilizing the program are not having a positive experience, is it a good utilization of funds? And that's a lot more granular discussion that we're going to need to have and figure out how we're going to have it. But thank you for those comments. Those comments notwithstanding, what are, is there a comfort level of making a motion on this particular proposed budget? And not everyone might be in agreement, but are we comfortable? Is anyone comfortable to make that motion?
Can I make one more comment before we do that? Sorry.
Sure.
So just so I understand, with the two legal assistance programs, so we would be proposing, cumulative numbers 1.5, and that's an increase from last year's allocation and a pretty significant increase from the averages that we put together, which were around 930 or something like that. I mean, I'll defer to others on that decision, but that seems like a not insignificant increase from both of those numbers. And so I just wanted to point it out before we make decisions.
Absolutely. Again, as your chair, I'm going to try to be as impartial as possible in this conversation. We all have different feelings about different programs. Every one of these things is valuable. Nobody's suggesting that they aren't. The way we approach this through the HOF will vary as to what we really see as promoting the goal of, access and maintenance of affordable housing. So, each of us has to, wrestle with that in our own ways with our own priorities. I'm not going to suggest that this completely reflects my allocation suggestions, because that would be untruthful. However, do I think this group uses their best thinking to make the best decisions that they can with what we know? I do. So again, if there is a member of the group that feels comfortable making a motion related to this budget, I will take it at this time. If we are in a space where we are uncomfortable making a motion about this budget, we can go into more conversation.
I feel comfortable. This is Ellie Fisher. I move that I think we're recommending at this point the HOF 2026 draft allocation as presented.
A second.
In this particular vote, no one has a conflict of interest, so no one should be abstaining. Everyone who's involved with this board may or may not be impacted by these budget choices. So at this time, we're not going to take abstentions. What I'm going to ask is for folks to vote aye or nay. And then I will record those. So what would be really helpful at this time, Brandon, if you could you put the roll call up? I want to make sure that we are formally going through the list so that there isn't any discrepancy. So I am going to call for a roll call vote. The motion is on the table to put this out as the current recommendation of the Housing Opportunity Fund Board. This will go to public comment. We will then revisit through the lens of public comment, and we will then finalize a budget in our next meeting that will go out to the URA to also approve. So at this time, I'm going to call on James.
Yes, or aye.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have a lot of vacancies today. Tanika.
Aye.
Karen. Aye. Ellie.
Aye.
Deidre.
Aye.
Rebecca Yago.
Aye.
Alan. Cisco.
Aye. Aye.
Leah Matthews.
Aye.
Adrian Wanaha, I'm also going to vote aye, and I'm looking forward to the public comment. Robert.
Aye.
Thank you. We have a unanimous set of ayes. Again, just a reminder to the group that we are going to come back to this after public comment. Us being able to do a draft today gives us that good window that we can actually collect public comment and then think about that carefully. My request to the URA was to get us as much information on the public comment as they can, as fast as they can. So we really can have some time to think through that public comment. This process is on a really tight timeline, which we wish we had more information and more opportunity. But thank you to everyone. I am going to ask for a public comment at this time because we only, so we had some confusion about public comment. So if there's folks that are still with us that would like to make a public comment at this time, please do. Please raise your hand so I can see you, and then I can call on you. Sushila.
Hi, everyone. It's Sushila Nimani Stanger. I'll see if my camera's working or not. I can't tell.
We can see you. You're good.
Oh, okay, great. All right, thank you. I just want to thank the HOF board members for all of your time, your commitment. And I was listening, and you really lead with care, and your expertise is very appreciated. So thank you. And I'm also taking note about your request for routine and consistent information related to HOF funding commitments, allocations. And so I'll work with our CFO and our housing team to make sure that we can formalize that for you. Ellie, you said that you'd be happy to work with us on it. Let's work on it. So I'm going to work with the internal team first. We'll come up with a draft template, and then I'll reach out to you. We'll review it and then see if that is relates to what's in your mind.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to let you know, the goal here is to provide you with relevant, timely information related to the investments that come across to the HOF board for your consideration, that you advance, and that you see that on a routine monthly basis updated.
Thank you so much. And we'll work on assisting in the build out of, really looking at that outcomes and impacts and giving our funded organizations the opportunity to have regular input into the meeting so we understand what's happening in real time. It gets hard here at the allocation plan process because not every organization that's utilizing the funds understands that they can come to the table or what they would present if they did. And we want to make sure that we're making that space open and transparent. So we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
And Adrienne, thank you for facilitating everything.
Of course.
Really appreciate your commitment to this work.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
I think Swain, you would like to make comment.
Yeah, sorry to keep everyone. I came in person along with Natalie and Chuck originally if we wanted to provide comment in the beginning, hopefully to provide some of the data that you're describing about and other things. But I'll just be quick because I know what's already happened and we can engage in public comment elsewhere. But yeah, my name's Swin Uber. I'm an attorney with Community Justice Projects. I work very closely with the Allegheny Housing Stabilization Collaborative and other partners within the eviction prevention ecosystem, such as Action. Over the past several years, with the support of the HOF and other funding sources, the collaborative has helped thousands of Pittsburghers stabilize their families and remain in their homes. Whether it's been the 3,812 mediations that have been held since 2020 with a success rate of 95%, the outcomes in the Lore of the Day program where over 2,500 families have been served, and we flipped the results from a positive outcome only 15% of the time to over 75% of the time, or the thousands more families supported by rental assistance, along with legal assistance and other supports that the collaborative provides through their No Wrong Door and holistic approach. Increasing housing options is, of course, critical. However, none of it is sufficient to prevent housing instability and the resulting homelessness. The best place to help house a family is often the exact place they already call home. And many of those who are faced eviction are already in subsidized units or using a voucher, just like the public commenter previously at the beginning of the meeting. Yet again, last year, there were 14,000 filings, over 14,000 filings in Allegheny County and over 4,400 within the city limits. And this year is on pace to surpass that in both levels. And amid the federal cuts coming to other public benefits, more and more of our vulnerable neighbors will be struggling to pay their rent on top of grocery bills and rising medical costs. The reality is that currently the Lawyer of the Day program that Stop the Violence Funds increase that City Council passed was designed to expand that to other courts. It's only in 4 courts within the city at the moment. There are 12 magisterial district courts. The courts where the person who spoke earlier, they were in a different court where the Lawyer of the Day program has not been able to expand to due to limited funds. So if there is an increase in funds, that sort of situation will be able to be dealt with at an earlier stage where supports will be there. Because right now there's nobody in that court providing any supports. But yeah, I appreciate people working to increase that allocation. It is critical. Without an increase, not only will supports not be able to be provided in new areas where currently people don't have anything. If it is a low enough number, actually we would have to cut supports even in the 4 courts and mediations where they are right now. So thank you. I appreciate everyone's work, and yeah, happy to answer any questions now, in between, or whenever.
Thanks, Wayne. And we will be working with all the provider organizations again to talk about the information that we receive in more real time and to be able to talk about some of these issues before we get to this moment. Having some equity where organizations are coming forward, and all of your good work is highlighted. So thank you for staying. At this time, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn.
This is Karen. I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have a second?
I'll second. It's Alan.
Thank you, Alan. At this time, we are adjourned.